So you have the Gita Dhyana. Yeah. And for anyone joining us online, it looks like this. It says Gita Dhyana, meditation on the Gita. And I posted this morning on my Facebook page. So if you're here live or watching later, if you just click on the Facebook page, you'll see a download, which is Gita Dhyana. So you can start the study of Gita this morning here. Om. Oh, Bhagavad Gita, by which Arjuna, let's repeat together, that's why we gave it to everyone. Okay. Om. Oh, Bhagavad Gita, by which Arjuna was illumined by Lord Krishna himself, and which was composed of 18 chapters within the Mahabharata by the ancient sage Vyasa. O Divine Mother, destroyer of rebirth, who showers the nectar of oneness on us. O Bhagavad Gita, my affectionate mother, on thee I meditate. All the Upanishads are the cows, the milker is the cowherd boy Krishna, Arjuna is the calf, people of purified intellect are the drinkers, and the milk is the supreme nectar of the Gita. My salutations to the Lord, who is the source of supreme bliss, whose grace makes the mute eloquent and the crippled cross mountains. So, first reading of the Gita. I'm asking you questions. First reading of the Gita?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And other than TTC?
No, I read it before TTC actually.
Okay. Okay, very good.
Few times.
Few times?
I'm on my list.
Go
For now.
Why did you get up just as you know I'm going to ask you this question?
Oh, I just need tissue. Really.
I know. But answer the question. How many times did you get to?
I don't know. Honestly speaking.
Okay.
I don't know if I've read it all the way through.
Okay.
Probably. I mean, I went once through with Swami Vishishta, TTC, and then
Okay, and that's a highlight.
Yeah, I
Okay.
circled around with you and T and Geeta. I don't think I made the whole
So you haven't read it all the way through?
I think I read the Holy Gita all the way through.
Did you? Okay.
I think. I might have missed a couple sections. My memory's pretty
You would
foggy.
know if you did.
Okay.
You would know if you did. Okay. Oh, you got your tissue, please.
Okay.
Oh. So the first chapter of the Gita. When I was in the world, very much in the world, I'm still in the world, but when I was living a very worldly life, for me it was all about, in terms of what would motivate me, it was how to be successful at whatever it was that I had chosen to be successful at. Whatever I would engage in, I wanted to be successful at it. I couldn't accept not being successful at it, whatever it was that really drove me. So I worked in the technology industry for, I don't know, 40 years or something like that. And a lot of the time was in sales marketing, like that. And so I was known as a good salesman. What makes a good salesman?
Listening.
Believing.
Listening.
Oh.
Listening. So, because how can you sell something to someone that you don't know? can't. That's not a good salesman. So if you don't know the client, if you don't know the person that you're hoping to sell something to, there's a statement, I used to hear this, that the salesperson was so good they could sell refrigerators to the, can you fill in the blank? Eskimos, yeah. I never met that salesperson.
Thought it was.
But I met people that were very good at understanding their clients. And so if you were to sell something to someone, what would you need in terms of the bhava, in terms of the connection?
Charisma.
Patience.
Who wants to fill it in? Patience? Yeah, you can have the patience of Job. Are you going to sell anything?
Yes.
No.
It's part of the listening.
You can go back to step one, listen.
Yeah, it's part of listening. A drive. Desire.
So you have to know what their problem is.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Desire to understand them.
You have to know what their problem is.
What do they need?
And if whatever you have in your bag of tricks does not help them to fix their problem, then you move on. Because you'll never, if you sell them something, they'll just come back to you later upset. This didn't do it. Buyer's remorse. This didn't do it. Look at your own experience being a consumer and see if it's so. And here in the spiritual realm, there's something being sold and there's something being consumed. It's not different in that way. So I was in the tech industry, right? So understanding the person's problem would mean understanding what they're manufacturing, understanding who they have working for them, understanding their resource within their organization, and looking for what? What are they missing? What are they missing? And do I have something that can help them to fill that hole in terms of what they're missing? So if they don't have a design engineering department, maybe our engineers can design for them. Maybe we know enough about what they're doing to be able to design something for them. Right? There's a reason for this discussion. Maybe you see already. If they just needed a product to fill in their range, and we had a product that would fill in their range and would suit their customers. So, makes sense? If I go to a computer store today, and somebody really wants to sell something to me, then they're going to have to know what I have and what I don't have. And what work am I doing? Who are my customers? Right? What is my dharma? Here we say dharma. But how do I serve? I would have said, how do I make money? How do I work? So if they really want, and then they could say, we have just the ticket. We have this computer, and it's really good at crafting spiritual documents. This will scan the Bhagavad Gita. You can just take this. Here, you can do it with the phone. And you can scan all the pages in the Bhagavad Gita. And then this application called Google Lens, it will scan the text of all of them. And in 20 minutes, you'll have the entire Bhagavad Gita recaptured in a book, and you can edit as you will. So if that were interested in me, if someone knew me in that way, then they could say that. And that would be a very good salesperson. So a salesperson is someone who listens and who knows the problem that the person they're talking with has. And if that person doesn't have a problem, then what do? As a salesperson?
Make one.
You move on. So, what is Krishna selling?
Dharma.
Sorry?
Dharma.
Wisdom.
It only relates to our problem.
Yeah.
He's selling everything. Krishna is the only storefront in town. And the town is this whole great universe. In fact, not only is he selling everything, but everything that's for sale is Krishna. He says that in the Gita. Whatever you worship here, it's me only. So you worship money, it's me only. You worship power, it's me only. You worship the grand life, it's me only. You worship food, me only. You worship wine, me only. He says. So Krishna actually has the goods for whatever our problem is. Okay, so now the sales pitch. When I would sit with a client, before I sat with the client, what would I have done?
Your research.
I would have researched their business, their needs, their resources, their customers, right? Okay. And I would know something about their problem. And what would I say first when I sat down with them? Of course, I will introduce myself. Hi, such and such. But then what do I say?
I understand you have a need.
What's your problem?
How can I help you?
Do you have an issue with this? Would something like this be of interest to you in your business? So you would start with making a relationship between yourself and the problem that the client has. So you would have done your research first, and then the problem. So what do you suppose the Bhagavad Gita starts with?
Arjuna's problem.
Your problem.
Oh, that's why the first chapter is hard.
That's the first chapter. That's the first chapter. You have a problem. Krishna knows that you have a problem. So first thing first, he's going to describe your problem. As a way of what?
Relate to us.
To relate to you. So that he can then relate to you what? The solution to your problem. So Krishna's done his research. He understands the nature of humanity. And he understands the problem. You see, in the case of Krishna, Krishna actually has the goods. He's got what everyone needs, not just what they want, but also what they need. And that's what I would look for, is the need, not just the want, because wants are fickle. You know, I want green, and then, you know, we tool up the manufacturing floor to make green widgets. And then in 6 months, blue. Better to have the widgets and then be able to paint them any color they want. So in this case, Krishna has what's needed. Krishna has what's needed, but he doesn't start telling, and who's telling the story? Vyasa is telling the story, but it's really Krishna telling the story.
Yes.
So why doesn't he just start the story by saying, you are the self?
It's a little too deep. You have to understand the pieces that make this.
Because you're not going to care
Right.
until he connects with you,
Right.
right?
Oh.
Until he helps you to see your need and therefore have an interest in what he's offering, a genuine interest in what he's offering. So therefore, where does the Bhagavad Gita start?
By your problem.
With our problem. With our problem. So the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is called the Yoga of the Grief of Arjuna.
Yes.
And it's a discussion of our problem. It's a diving into our problem. So, and one of the ways that we can relate to the first chapter is look at our own life and see our own issues here being discussed. To be able to relate to it. So see if you can see in your own experience, in what you're dealing with, what Krishna is talking about here. Oh, okay. And actually, there are many characters in the run-up to the Gita. In the Mahabharata, thousands upon thousands of characters that are written about in the Mahabharata. But by the time we get to the 701 slokas, the Gita, it's really just Krishna and Arjuna, but it's taking place in the middle of this battlefield with millions of warriors arrayed on both sides. So it starts with the other characters being present, but in the center of the battlefield, and here, if we remember, Swami Satchidananda Ji Maharaj gave us yesterday morning this analogy. He said this is taking place in a war, but really, this is about what's happening inside, in this war inside. And that relates to the problem and the solution, both. Problems inside, solutions inside. And the entire battle is taking place in, do we remember the name of the battlefield? Kurukshetra, very good, Kurukshetra. And what is said to symbolize this Kurukshetra?
The holy battleground.
This body.
Yes.
This body. So this body is said to be the Kurukshetra. And in the center of it, what do you find in the center of the body? Heart.
Soul.
Okay, so it starts here. Dhritarashtra is the blind king. And the significance of blind king is what?
He's
The
blind
senseless blind.
to the truth.
He's blind to the truth, ignorance. Very good. Dhritarashtra said, "Tell me, Sanjaya." And Sanjaya is Dhritarashtra's loyal servant. Sanjaya actually is narrating the entire bit of the Bhagavad Gita, you'll see. But his name is only mentioned at the beginning and at the end. So tell me, Sanjaya, what did my sons and Pandu's sons do when they assembled in the holy field of Kurukshetra, eager to fight? So this is the blind king sitting up above the battlefield, off to the side of his forces, the 100 sons and all of the armies, including Krishna's army that's been co-opted and offered to be on the side of the Kauravas, on the side of ego, on the side of the senses that are ego-driven. So, what did my sons and Pandu's sons do when they assembled on the holy field of Kurukshetra, eager to fight? And then Sanjaya said, after observing the Pandava army arrayed for battle, King Duryodhana approached his teacher Drona and said, and just character Duryodhana is Kaurava. Okay. Master, look at this great army of the sons of Pandavas. So the son of Dhritarashtra on one side is looking at the army on the other side, saying, and he's observed and he says, Master, look at this great army of the sons of Pandu, marshaled by Drupada, your skilled disciple. They have heroes, mighty archers, Yuyudhana and Virata, matching even the great Bhima and Arjuna, and Drupada, who is the great chariot warrior. there are Drishta Ketu, Chekitani, the brave king of Kashi, Purujit, Kunti Boja, and Saibya, best of men. They have courageous Yudhamanyu, valiant Uttamaujas, the son of Subhadra, and the sons of Draupadi, all great warriors. And our leaders too, let me name them for you who are the highest of the twice-born. There are you, Bhishma, Karna, Kripa, who is victorious in battle, Asvatthama, Vikarna, and Jayadratha, son of Somadatta also. And many more heroes and well-trained warriors fully armed and ready to give their lives for me. Vast is our army under Bhishma, theirs is meager in comparison under Bhima's leadership. Now all of you take your positions throughout your divisions and by all means protect Bhishma. To embolden Duryodhana, Bhishma, the mighty great-grandfather and Kuru, elder, roared like a lion and blew his conch powerfully. If you listen, maybe you can hear it.
That's his ego. He's being loudmouth.
So what is it in you?
I want to express myself in an ego way. He's blowing his conch. He's like, let me make myself heard.
So Swamiji had some commentary. He says, how did the fighting actually begin? The mighty grandsire, Bhishma, the oldest in the family, was a very saintly person. But because he was head of the Kaurava family, he felt he had to fight on Duryodhana's side. So, what's been established here is that this is a fight between the forces of good and the forces of evil. But what did you just hear? So the forces of evil are the Kauravas, and this person that's just being described is righteous. And he's fighting on the
unrighteous side.
On the unrighteous side. He couldn't simply change his allegiance at the last minute. He accepted it as his swadharma, or his predestined duty. Meaning he was in a situation where it was naturally his responsibility in order to assume this role. So he accepted it. He said, I'm not going to switch sides now because, interesting. It's my duty to fight even though I know I'm on the unrighteous side. That's a quote that Swamiji's given him. And it was Bhishma who actually began the fighting. He gave a lion's roar and blew his conch shell. Then Sri Krishna, Arjuna, and the others blew their conch shells. This small point is to be noted. The battle was actually begun by the unrighteous Kauravas, not by the Pandavas. Okay, so we continue with the tale, the build-up here. So this is, right, do we see where this is? The two armies have assembled. And so this is really the beginning of the prosecution of this battle. So there are two sides in the battlefield. And you can relate this back to inside here in a little bit as well. And one side blows the battle conch, blows the horn, and what immediately happens?
The return.
Of course, there has to be a response.
Yes.
Okay. Oh. So immediately the Kurus sounded their conches, kettle drums, cow horns, tabors, and trumpets, creating a tremendous noise. Then Krishna and Arjuna stood in their magnificent chariot, which was yoked to white horses, and blew their divine conches. The Panchayanya, which is a name for a conch, and it's described here, conch taken from the demon Panchayanya, was blown by Krishna. The Devadatta, God-given conch, was blown by Arjuna, and the Poundra conch by Bhima of awesome feats. King Yudhishthira, son of Kunti, blew the Ananta Vijaya, or the endless victory conch. So everybody has a name. The conches have a name, the drums have a name. Nakula and Sahadeva blew the Sugosha, the great sounding conch, and Manipushpaka, the jewel bracelet conch. Immediately, the great archer and king of Kasti, the valiant charioteer Sikandi, Drishtadyumna, Virata, and the invincible Satyaki, together with Drupada, the sons of Draupadi, and the mighty son of Subhadra, blew their conches, my lord, filling the earth and the heavens with such a roar that it tore at the hearts of the Kurus.
Yes.
So what are we hearing? What are we seeing?
Divine being in the ego aspect of it knows that their strength, even though they're small in numbers, they've got divine strength. That's what I mean.
Dharmajan, what are you hearing? Any approach, any way you deal with it.
Nothing specific in that way, just that there's one side that has a din, a great sound, and the other side that has a divine sound, a celestial sound.
Okay, fair enough. And they're both doing what?
Announcing their readiness.
Mounting their readiness, announcing their readiness. Is that what you said? Yeah. Oh. So, and what does that do? So they're beating the drums, they're blowing the horns. What is that doing to the soldiers?
Revving them up.
Revving them up.
Yeah.
So, you feel the anticipation coming? Huh? Getting ready for the battle. Okay. Sanjaya said, I'm missing. Filling the earth and heavens in such a roar it tore at the hearts of the Kurus. On observing Dhritarashtra's host arrayed for battle, so all of his armies, and ready to begin, Arjuna, flying the ensign of Hanuman, lifted his bow and said to Krishna, "Draw my chariot between the two armies so that I can see whom to fight and with whom I must wage war. I want to know who is gathered here intending to please the evil-minded Duryodhana in battle." And Sanjaya said, thus requested by Arjuna, Krishna placed the best of chariots between the two armies. Then facing Bhishma, Drona, and all the rulers of the earth, he said, "Behold, Arjuna, all the Kurus gathered together." And standing there, Arjuna saw in both armies uncles, grandfathers, teachers, cousins, sons, grandsons, comrades, fathers-in-law, and friends. And so what happened with Krishna? Seeing this.
Disturbing.
Arjuna or Krishna?
Arjuna, thank you.
Okay.
Arjuna. So Arjuna came to the battlefield seeing the Kauravas as what? Enemies, right? So the Kauravas came to the battlefield seeing the Pandavas as enemies, yes? And so too the Pandavas came to the battlefield seeing the Kauravas as enemies. Yes? And now the build-up has happened, and the horns are blowing, and the drums are beating, and all of this. And Arjuna says something like, "Wait a minute, let me see who I'm doing battle with here. And when he comes to see who he's doing battle with, he sees what?
He sees himself, but friends and family on both sides.
Friends and family on both sides. So, and on the commentary, until then he'd regarded them as wicked, but the moment he stood between the armies, he saw these familiar categories instead. So familiar categories, friends and enemies, cousins, uncles.
Common.
Sorry?
The common ground.
The common ground. So categories. So friends and relatives is a category, right?
Yes.
So seeing them on both sides. Oh. And what sinks in? What starts to hit him? What does he start getting the flavor of?
I gotta kill them.
I've got to kill them. And what do you suppose he considers?
Not
I
fighting.
mean, he might have played kickball, you know, with these cousins back when he was a boy and stuff. He might have memories and all sorts of like fond, emotional things coming up of uncles.
I
And,
feel the same.
Yeah.
you know,
So here's
barbecues or whatever.
barbecues. So here's one. Oh,
Sounds right.
So here's one. Both all of the boys, so the 5 Pandavas and the 100 Kauravas, they all learned archery. And that was a multi-year endeavor. The boys actually grew up together.
Yeah.
And they would have had their rivalries and their good moments and their laughs and all of this together, right? And they would have, and now they find themselves.
Sorry. Excuse me.
Now they find themselves this many years later with life's events having played out, and now the same ones that were in school together with their master, learning the art of war with a bow and arrow, fighting with a bow and arrow. So, and by the way, what do you think they think of their master, their teacher?
Love.
They revere him.
Yes.
Yeah. And which side is he fighting on?
Unfriendly.
On the Kaurava side. Well, an unfriendly is a relative thing, isn't
Oh
it?
yes, that's true.
It
Undivine.
depends on who you align yourself with.
Unrighteous.
Even that still is going to depend on who you align yourself with.
Look how
That's right. It's both sides are right. In their own mind.
So that starts to hit home. This has significance in terms of our problem and our battle,
Yes.
and we'll come to it. But see what he's seeing. He's seeing, I thought you were an enemy, and now I'm remembering. Now I'm seeing, and here, my teacher. I'm supposed to kill my teacher, but I love my teacher.
Yes.
Right?
I'm thinking about
So that
like
would be Arjuna
attachments.
thinking that. Sorry.
I'm thinking about like attachments and having to get rid of them, but then thinking about all the good times I've had. Like when I was trying to give up drugs, it was like I always kept thinking of the first times when I first started doing them, because those were the grand times.
The only.
The only grand times.
Yes.
But the mind always goes back to the grand times and never thinks about, you know.
And so in a way, those characters are still very much here,
Yeah.
still present. In the psyche, they're still here, aren't they?
Characters? What?
Those persons, those characters,
Tendency characters.
those characters.
Yes.
Characters named this drug or that drug or this alcohol
Okay.
or that alcohol,
Right.
with this quality or that quality,
Oh, yes.
which gave this. So you suppose he's remembering the old times
Yeah.
on both sides? The times we played together, the times we had the war games together, the times when our teacher respected and loved all of us.
Yes.
Huh?
Now he has to. What if he has to shoot his teacher with an arrow?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So, on seeing his friends and relatives positioned on both sides, Arjuna was overcome with pity and said despondently, O Krishna, my limbs fail me, my mouth is parched, my body is shaking, and my hair stands on end, seeing my relatives gathered here and anxious to fight. So, can you relate to the feeling? Have you ever engaged in something that you knew was your duty, and in order to prosecute it, in order to do it, there would be results?
Oh,
That's what we were talking about last night.
Oh, there would be results. So things wouldn't be the same. And have you considered, therefore, should I do it or not? Have you felt that pain? So, so here in this situation, this is a big one, right?
yes.
So what's happening? What's happening? My limbs fail me, my mouth is parched, my body is shaking, my hair stands on end, seeing my relatives gathered here and anxious to fight. Does anybody know about or work with the self-defense mechanisms, fight or flight, the mechanisms of fight or flight? Has anybody studied? In yoga, we get to study it. We get to study it. So when there's a threat perceived, what happens? What happens with the vision? Does anybody remember this?
It's
It's
tighter.
narrow.
It gets narrower, and it focuses on
The perceived threat.
the perceived threat.
The heart rate goes up.
What else? The heart rate goes up. Very good.
Breathing.
What about the energy, the prana?
Sky.
Well, it actually withdraws from non-essential and goes very specifically to whatever is seen as a threat.
Or the legs.
In order to power the running away, or to power the fighting, right? One or the other. Oh. And it's marshaled there. So actually the pulse rate rises, the blood pressure drops. So the pupils dilate like that. Have you ever been in a situation where that fright or grief was so strong that you could relate to what Arjuna is saying here? He says, my limbs fail me, my mouth is parched. So what happens so the digestive system does what? Have you noticed?
Down.
It stops, it shuts down. So salivation stops.
Water has to go to the correct places.
Yeah, everything has to go to the extremities. So the digestive system, which is normally functioning and salivation is there and such, it shuts down, it just stops. So you notice stage fright was the way I related to this. So I had to give a talk, right, whenever I would have to, and I was afraid of what people would think of me. Then I would get up and parched. So I never understood that. Okay, we'll stop here for the morning. We'll come back tomorrow morning here to continue the yoga of the grief of Arjuna. The build-up. Great build-up. Okay, so we'll close with final prayers in RT, page 80. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvairukmeva Bandhanan Mrityor Mokshayamamritat. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvairukmeva Bandhanan Mrityor Mokshayamamritat. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvairukmeva Bandhanan Mrityor Mokshayamamritat. Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu, Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu, Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu, Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu, Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha, Sarvesham Nirahamaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyanto, Makashit Dukkapatave, Asato Ma Satkamaya, Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityor Ma Mritam Gamaya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudashyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Adorable Lord of mercy and love, salutations and prostrations unto thee. Thou art omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. Thou art Satchidananda. Thou art existence, knowledge, and bliss absolute. Thou art the indweller of all beings. Grant us an understanding heart, equal vision, balanced mind, faith, devotion, and wisdom. Grant us inner spiritual strength to resist temptation and to control the mind. Free us from egoism, lust, anger, greed, hatred, and jealousy. Fill our hearts with divine virtues. Let us behold thee in all these names and forms. Let us serve thee in all these names and forms. Let us ever remember thee. Let us ever sing thy glories. Let thy name be ever on our lips. Let us abide in thee forever and ever. Ambalo Sakguru Shivananda Maharaj ki. Ambalo Sakguru Saraswati Mani ki. Okay, that's right.